Greetings to all, and welcome to our weekly prayer retreat time together during this pandemic. How are your COVID resolutions doing? Have you made any of those? I hope you're finding some quiet time to yourself each day to help nourish your inner lives. We're calling this time together, as you know, Poetry as Prayer, during which we're sampling a variety of mystical poets, finding power and solace in their descriptions of their experiences with and in the divine. We're using Daniel Ladinsky's book, Love Poems from God, and we're also reading several current-day poets who help to usher us into the experience of the sacred in the ordinary. The holy, they might say, hidden in plain sight. Next week, I believe, will be our 8th week of this contemplative series, and we'll finish the series next week with readings from a selection of present-day contemporary poets and mystics that we can use and enjoy in our meditative time with God. We start each week, of course, with music, and this week I want to share more of my favorite choral pieces. This week, again, by a contemporary choral composer, Morten Lauridsen. Lauridsen is an American choral composer. He lives out on Waldron Island, out as one of the San Juan Islands in Puget Sound off the coast of Seattle. And this favorite work of his he wrote after arriving on the island, coming in by boat and moving into the cabin with a $50 spinet small piano, his golden retriever, and a sleeping bag. And on that piano, he wrote this choral work. He's thought of as a true mystic. We'll listen to a version performed by an a cappella octet from the United Kingdom. Their name is Voces 8, 8 voices. This is O Magnum Mysterium, O Great Mystery, by Morten Lauridsen. You might want, as we enter this time, just to close your eyes and listen as we pray through music. Today we'll start with a poet who was a good friend and co-worker of last week's author, Teresa of Avila. His name is St. John of the Cross. He lived in the 16th century from 1541 to 1591. John of the Cross has long been recognized as one of the world's great mystical poets. His work is said to reveal the profound experience of divine communion. John was born in Spain, just northeast of Avila, where Teresa was born. John's father died when he was young, and the family moved to a larger city where he was educated at a Jesuit school. And then he entered the Carmelite order and became a friar as a young man. At age 25, he met Teresa of Avila, who was now in her 50s, and he was transformed by her and soon joined her attempts at reforming the Carmelite order. A few years later, due to his alliance with Teresa and the Reform movement, he was arrested, imprisoned, and tortured by his fellow monks. This lasted for 9 months, and during this time John underwent a spiritual awakening while captive, and it led to an outpouring of mystical poetry and writing, and it was later collected in volumes, probably the most famous of which is his description of the dark night of the soul. He was canonized as a saint in 1726. St. John of the Cross is considered one of Spanish literature's most important poets, and his works have been translated many times since his death. We read from Daniel Ladinsky's book, from St. John of the Cross. First one is called My Soul is a Candle. My soul is a candle that burned away the veil. Only the glorious duties of light I now have. The sufferings I knew initiated me into God. I am a holy confessor of men. When I see their tears running across their cheeks and falling into God's hands, what can I say to their great sorrow that I too have known? The soul is a candle that will burn away the darkness. Only the glorious duties of love we will have. The sufferings I knew initiated me unto God. Only God's glorious cares I now have. Questions: what are God's glorious cares? Sometimes people find God in the beauty, the good times. Sometimes we find God in the suffering. This one's called If You Want. If you want, the Virgin will come walking down the road, pregnant with the holy, and say, I need shelter for the night. Please take me inside your heart. My time is so close. Then, under the roof of your soul, you will witness the sublime intimacy, the divine, the Christ taking birth forever. As she grasps your hand for help, for each of us is the midwife of God. Each of us. Yes, there under the dome of your being does creation come into existence eternally. Through your womb, dear pilgrim, the sacred room in your soul, as God grasps our arms for help, for each of us is God's beloved servant, never far. Each of us gives birth to creation. Creation comes into existence through the sacred womb in your soul. Each of us is the midwife of God. This one's called This Earth a Bough. You let my sufferings cease, for there was no one who could cure them. Now let my eyes behold your face, for you are our only love. My spirit's body is rising near, this earth, a bow that shot me. Now lift me into your arms as something precious that you dropped. My only suffering from this day forth will be your divine beauty, and you will constantly cure my blessed sight each time you bring your face so near to mine and call me bride. Do not be sad, my old friends. Look, these wings are finally stretched and laughing. Our souls are rising near to you. This earth a bow that shot us. Now lift me into your arms, dear God, like something precious that you dropped. The idea of being held by God as something precious. The earth, a bow that shot us. This one describes an intense hunger or thirst for God, a common theme of our mystical authors. It's called "The Sleeping Man is Blessed." What would a man buried alive do? Try with all his strength to breathe the sun again, of course. Your hands, your feet, your eyes, your every word and thought. There is not one waking second, the soul pounding against the cage of the body does not want God to rush into its lungs. The sleeping man is blessed with a faith that is not active. Faith, as it ripens, turns into an almost insatiable appetite, and the awake lion must prowl for God in places it once feared. This intense hunger for God, insatiable appetite. This one's called "They Have Different Needs." Some seeds beneath the earth are dormant. They fell the last time the cool air turned the leaves gold. Those seeds have different needs than we do. Let them go about their life completely unharmed by your views. But we have cracked open. We sensed, even beneath the earth, the holy was near, and are reaching up to know and claim light as ourself. We are seeds cracked open beneath the earth, craving light from God. This one uses a metaphor of God as the sun and the soul as the moon. It's entitled "A Nursery Rhyme." Would not the sun have lost its mind if it said to the moon, "Dear, give me more light"? For does not all the moon's beauty and charm come from the sun's existence? Could we even see the moon if it was not for the sun's being? If anything we see of earth and sky and each other not dependent on the sun, on the real sun, God, are we not some extension of God's being? Does not all form have its life in reflecting God? It does. Would not a father have lost his mind if he locked his child into a room that the child could not possibly escape from, and then the man beat the child for not being able to escape? It would be insane of God to ever make us moons, our souls, feel bad for not giving God more light, more love, more obedience, more anything God might want. And don't tell me of free will. That is just a compassionate nursery rhyme that can be helpful to believe if you are infirm. God is the sun, we are the moon. This was called The Essence of Desire. I did not have to ask my heart what it wanted. Because of all the desires I have never ever known, just one did I cling to, for it was the essence of all desire, to hold beauty in my soul's arms. Our souls are looking for beauty in God. This one's called If You Love. You might quiet the whole world for a second if you pray. And if you love, if you really love, our guns will wilt. If that were true. This one comes from the reminder that John of the Cross was imprisoned, he was beaten, and he was tortured. He was held for 9 months in an effort by the church for him to renounce this movement of reform that he and Teresa were trying for church reform that he was a part of. It's called I Cobbled Their Boots. How could I love my fellow men who tortured me? One night, I was dragged into a room and beaten near death with their shoes, striking me hundreds of times in the face, scarring me forever. I cried out for God to help until I fainted. That night in a dream more real than this world, a strap from the Christ's sandal fell from my bleeding mouth. And I looked at him, and he was weeping, and spoke, I cobbled their boots. How sorry I am. What moves all things is God. This idea of a suffering God, all things are created. Some things are created that cause pain and suffering, and God suffers with us in our suffering. This one's called arrogance. The weight of arrogance is such that no bird can fly carrying it. And the man who feels superior to others, that man cannot dance. The real dance, when the soul takes God into its arms, and you both fall onto your knees in gratitude. A blessed gratitude for life. The idea of gratitude rather than arrogance. And this is a nice one. What is grace? It's called. What is grace? I asked God. And God said, all that happens. Then God added, when I looked perplexed, could not lovers say that every moment in their beloved's arms was grace? Existence is my arms. Though I well understand how one can turn away from me until the heart has wisdom. All that happens, existence, is grace. Existence is God's arms, and we may turn away until our heart gains wisdom. This one's called A Rabbit Noticed My Condition. I was sad one day and went for a walk. I sat in a field. A rabbit noticed my condition and came near. It often does not take more than that to help at times. To just be close to creatures who are so full of knowing, so full of love, that they don't chat. They just gaze with their marvelous understanding. Sometimes no words are needed, just silent understanding. Other times, words can be helpful. This one's called They Can Be Like a Sun. They can be like a sun, words. They can do for the heart what light can for a field. So sometimes they're for silence and quiet understanding, and there are times for words. They can bring light. This one is from St. John of the Cross, called Tenderly. Tenderly I now touch all things, knowing one day we will part. Enjoying, appreciating the present moment, for life, of course, is fleeting. This one's called Dig Here, the angel said. She caught me off guard when my soul said to me, "Have we met?" So surprised I was to hear her speak like that, I chuckled. She began to sing a tale. There was once a hard-working man who used to worry so much because he could not feed and clothe his children and wife the way he wanted. There was a beautiful little chapel in the village where the man lived, and one day while he was praying, an angel appeared. The angel said, "Follow me." And he did, out into the ancient forest. "Now, dig here," the angel said. And the man felt strength in his limbs that he had not known since youth. And with just his bare hands, he dug deep, and he found a lost treasure. And his relationship with the world changed. Finding our soul's beauty does that. Gives us tremendous freedom from worry. Dig here, the angel said, in your soul, in your soul. Digging in your soul, searching inside yourself. Go deep to find your inner beauty. This one uses some poetic metaphor, talking about your body is one stream and your spirit is another. It's called To Those Songs. Your body is a divine stream, as is your spirit. When your two great rivers merge, one voice is found, and the earth applauds in excitement. Shrines are erected to those songs, the hand and the heart have sung as they served the world with love, a love we cherish. Those two streams, two rivers, your body, your spirit, they merge into one voice that sings and serves the world in love. And this last one from St. John of the Cross, it's called Peace. Quiet yourself. Reach out with your mind's skillful hand. Let it go inside of me and touch God. Don't be shy, dear. Every aspect of light we are meant to know. The calm hand holds more than baskets of goods from the market. The calm soul knows more than anything this world can offer from her beautiful womb. That ever-present desire for peace, quiet, a calm soul. Let your mind go inside of me and touch God. That's the Spanish mystic St. John of the Cross. Our second poet today is Rainer Maria Rilke. He was born in 1875 in Prague. That was the capital of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. And Rilke's parents were members of Prague's small German-speaking elite, but their limited financial means made them all the more conscious of their social status, and their pretentious world caused Rilke to have what he described as an anxious, heavy childhood. He was an only child, and at age 10, his father sent him off to military school, which he hated. His only refuge there was in solitude and poetry. After 5 years at the military academy, he went to the University of Prague and then to Munich, and then he decided on a literary career and began writing poetry. He made a trip to Russia at that time, which was formative to his life. He met Tolstoy there, and he found a land and a spirituality that influenced his writing of what's known as the Book of Hours, from which we'll read today. He met a sculptor while living in an art colony in what's now Germany. They married, he moved to Paris, and he became a friend and secretary of the famous sculptor Auguste Rodin. And through his writing, he had very difficult years of struggle for material survival. He had repeated moves from one place to another. He was frustrated by his dependence on the generosity of benefactors. Yet he couldn't give himself to any other work than writing. When World War I broke out, he moved to Switzerland, where he lived the rest of his life. And it was there that he wrote his last two famous works, the Duino Elegies and the Sonnets to Orpheus. He died of leukemia in 1926, and at the time of his death, his work was intensely admired by leading European artists, but he was almost unknown to the general reading public. His reputation since that time has grown steadily, and he has come to be universally regarded as a master of verse. Here are some selections from his early works. It's a collection of poems published in 1905. It's called The Book of Hours, Hours. His works have been translated from the original German by many authors, and this version from a book called Rilke's Book of Hours, Love Poems to God. It's translated by Anito Barrows and Joanna Macy. This is Rainier Maria Rilke. I live my life in widening circles that reach out across the world. I may not complete this last one, but I give myself to it. I've been circling around God, that primordial tower. I've been circling for thousands of years, and I still don't know. Am I a falcon, a storm, or a great song? This one is called Go to the Limits of Your Longing. God speaks to each of us as God makes us, then walks with us silently out of the night. These are the words we dimly hear. You, sent out beyond your recall, go to the limits of your longing. Embody me. Flare up like a flame and make big shadows I can move in. Let everything happen to you. Beauty and terror. Just keep going. No feeling is final. Don't let yourself lose me. Nearby is the country they call life. You will know it by its seriousness. Give me your hand. Those famous words, let everything happen to you, beauty and terror. Just keep going. No feeling is final. Words from God. The next one is, you, God, who live next door. If at times through the long night I trouble you with my urgent knocking, this is why. I hear you breathe so seldom. I know you're all alone in that room. If you should be thirsty, there's no one to get you a glass of water. I wait, listening, always. Just give me a sign. I'm right here. As it happens, the wall between us is very thin. Why couldn't a cry from one of us break it down? It would crumble easily. It would barely make a sound. That urgent call for God. I wait, listening always. The wall between us is very thin. And the next one. We must not portray you in king's robes, you drifting mist that brought forth the morning. Once again, from the old paint boxes, we take the same gold for the scepter and the crown that has disguised you through the ages. Piously, we produce our images of you till they stand around you like 1,000 walls. And when our hearts would simply open, our fervent hands hide you. We make many images of gods from our paint boxes and our gold. We disguise God through the ages, piously producing images that suit us. This next one has to do with the search for closeness, for familiarity with God. If only for once it were still. If the not quite right and the why, this could be muted, and the neighbor's laughter and the static my senses make. If all of it didn't keep me from coming awake, then in one vast thousand-fold thought, I could think you up to where thinking ends. Then I could possess you, even for the brevity of a smile, to offer you to all that lives in gladness. That desire to possess God even for the brevity of a smile. I read it here in your every word, in the story of the gestures with which your hands cupped themselves around our becoming, limiting, warm. You said live out loud, and die, you said lightly. And over again, you said, be. If we could only be. I believe in all that has never yet been spoken. I want to free what waits within me, so that what no one has dared to wish for may for once spring clear without my contriving. If this is arrogant, God, forgive me. But this is what I need to say. May what I do flow from me like a river. No forcing and no holding back, the way it is with children. Then, in these swelling and ebbing currents, these deepening tides moving out, returning, I will sing you as no one ever has, streaming through the widening channels into the opening sea. In his searching, he writes this one, talking to God. You see, I want a lot. Maybe I want it all. The darkness of each endless fall, the shimmering light of each ascent. So many are alive who don't seem to care. Casual, easy, they move in the world as though untouched. But you take pleasure in the faces of those who know they thirst. You cherish those who grip for your survival. You are not dead yet. It's not too late to open your depths by plunging into them and drink in the life that reveals itself quietly there. that thirst for God, drinking in the life. Why am I reaching again for the brushes? When I paint your portrait, God, nothing happens, but I can choose to feel you. At my senses' horizon, you appear hesitantly, like scattered islands. Yet standing here, peering out, I'm all the time seen by you. All creation holds its breath, listening within me, because to hear you, I keep silent. That's Rainer Maria Rilke. We finish today with a contemporary poet, a writer, and an artist named Jan Richardson. She's an ordained United Methodist minister. She's a retreat leader and conference speaker. She's written several books that include her poems and her prose and her artwork. A couple of her books are books of blessings, and I'll read a couple of those for us today. She has a couple of websites, janrichardson.com and paintedprayerbook.com. I would encourage you to check those out. Here's a blessing for hope by Jan Richardson. So may we know the hope that is not just for someday, but for this day, here, now, in this moment that opens to us. Hope not made of wishes, but of substance. Hope made of sinew and muscle and bone. Hope that has breath and a beating heart. Hope that will not keep quiet and be polite. Hope that knows how to holler when it's called for. Hope that knows how to sing where there seems little cause. Hope that raises us from the dead, not someday, but this day, every day, again and again and again and again. Here's a blessing of hope that asks us, where does your hope begin? Where does hope live in you? How do you notice it in your body? And when has someone shown up in a way that enabled you to hope in something that seemed impossible? Guardian of the seasons, keeper of every time, tune us to your rhythms, that we may know the occasion for stillness and the moment for action. May we be so prepared, so aware, so awakened in our waiting, that when you prompt us into motion, our hands may be your hands, and our purposes your own. And this last blessing from Jan Richardson. Now, more than ever, let us be the ones who will not turn away, Let us be the ones who will go farther into the wreck and deeper into the rubble. Let us be the ones who will enter into the places of devastation beyond belief and despair beyond our imagining. And there, let us listen for the Spirit that brooded over the formless darkness. And there let us look again for the God who gathered up the chaos and began to create. Let us be the ones who will give ourselves to the work of making again and to the endless beginning of creation. Jan Richardson. Before our final song that we always end with, I want to share a last poem from Rainer Maria Rilke, and it sort of introduces the idea of the song. When I read this poem of Rilke, I thought of this song that we will finish with. The poem goes like this. I'm too alone in the world, yet not alone enough to make each hour holy. I'm too small in the world, yet not small enough to be simply in your presence, like a thing, just as it is. I want to know my own will and move with it. And I want, in the hushed moments when the nameless draws near, to be among the wise ones or alone. I want to mirror your immensity. I want to never be too weak or too old to bear the heavy, lurching image of you. I want to unfold. Let no place in me hold itself closed, for where I am closed, I am false. I want to stay clear in your sight. That idea that I'm too small in the world, but not small enough. I want to mirror your immensity, to bear the heavy, lurking image of you. With that in mind, we will end with another song by Nicole Nordeman called Small Enough. See you next week.